there's lots of good readers out there who then write about what they read, which is nice. I find it very useful.
I'll project. I noticed that in many of the stories you quote you have quotes from your boyfriend, and I had sort of got a nice picture of Draper through it, and I know you both, and know you've been together for a long time, and I was thinking how rarely people actually write about their meaningful others while they're alive. So I guess what I'm asking. I'm curious if you think that's true, and have you ever written about Draper in work of fiction before? Just curious.
Well, we've been together 30 years, so we're kind of just, it's hard to write about my life without writing about Draper. And he said, he's really smart. So he says lots of good quotable things. I have to, use them, I can't help but use them in my fiction. But it'll be like, I don't write anything straight autobiographical in my fiction. I'm always mixing things up. So there's like Draper's hand shows up, or his foot, or his ear, but never Draper whole. And the same for myself. There's pieces of me, but never the whole Megillah. So he's in there. He's got and sometimes there's characters who combine the two of us, which must look really weird. So.
Yes.
I think it's the second to last chapter of Exiles in America. You suddenly switch voice. I think, it's the very end. You suddenly switch voice and you address the reader. And it was really startling, but in a good way. But I'm wondering what made you do that at that moment and then jump back into the story again.
Okay, I'm trying to... Yeah, there's Exiles in America. It's all written in the third person and outside. And suddenly, towards the end, the narrator addresses the reader and says, "Well, what about you? How would you do this?" And it just kind of, it was such, to me, it was like a tense moment. It was, I also was kind of, I was reacting against, people will complain about my characters. People will say, "Oh, these are such unlikable people," and it was I was a preemptive strike. I wanted to say, okay, you probably don't. I was imagining the readers who weren't approving, who didn't like my characters. I'd say, okay, how about you? Do you really live your life so much better? There's a little bit of anger in there, a little defensive anger, but it was, and it hit me. I tried it, and then I started showing it to people, and they liked it. So I thought, okay, I'll keep it, and it made it strong. It's towards the end of the book, and it was a strong device, but it came at a point where the reader could step back and see it as a whole. So I hope it worked. I'm glad to hear it worked for you. Draper had this great comparison that it was like those paintings, 18th or 17th century paintings, where there's always a figure looking out of the canvas at you and pointing at what's... and that's true. That is kind of what was going on. So.
As I recall, that was one of the rare novels by anyone where you were writing about a situation that was very much present at the time. And I had the sense that you were also speaking to the reader because it was about the politics that were going on and the madness of how it wasn't being addressed. Am I wrong about that?
No, it was... Exiles in America took place during... I wrote it... I started writing it before we invaded Iraq, and I was writing it while we invaded Iraq. So it was kind of, it's about a relation. An Iranian family comes to Williamsburg, Virginia, and becomes involved with a gay couple there. And so I was kind of looking over my shoulder at politics, at what was happening in current affairs while I was writing the book, and that I was kind of, and I was. Again, kind of addressing some of the things, what I was wrestling with, what I was trying to understand, and that ended up being put in the book. In a way, I was kind of racing with current events, and and doing some improvisation along the way because of what was happening. But I was trying to understand it myself. So.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay, my pleasure. You've been a great audience. Thank you. And this has been really lovely.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you to Chris Bram and Don Wisey. They're going to stick around if you have any other questions, and by all means, come up and buy some books. Thank you all for coming, and updated. Our events are on strandbooks.com. Thank you for coming.